Question 24 asks you to justify why cardiovascular disease, cancer, or one other condition you have studied has been identified as a health priority area. Now, this question is aimed at you showing that you know the five criteria areas for identifying priority areas. So we're talking social justice principle, priority population groups, the prevalence of the condition, potential for prevention and early intervention, and cost to the individuals and community. That's the 5 areas of the syllabus that this question is actually targeting. Now, come back to the question first off. It only asks you to look at one particular priority area. It's saying cardiovascular disease, cancer, or one other condition. So the first thing that we need to address is the fact that some of you guys thought that meant cardiovascular disease, cancer, and another condition, or cardiovascular disease and cancer, when in fact it's just asking for cardiovascular disease or cancer or one other condition that you've studied. And our other one that we studied was respiratory disease, but you've got the info for the other 3. So you could have done any of the 6 priority areas. But as I said, the important thing is that you know those 5 criteria from the dot point for identifying priority areas. That's where we're getting the majority of our information from. And what you need to do is then justify why whatever disease it is you've chosen has been chosen as a priority area. And clearly, to be a priority area, it has to meet the criteria. So you're saying in your answer, this disease is a priority area because it meets all the criteria. So you can see here, the first sentence this person has written, CVD has been identified as a health priority area because it meets all the criteria set out. And then he then goes on to go through each of the 5 areas. Social justice principles. So he explains what they are and says if they're not met, then there's a large cause for concern. He gives an example of social justice principles not being met, and then finishes it off by saying this justifies CVD's presence as a priority area. So really good, if you just look at that snapshot of social justice principles, a really good example there of how he explains how the principles are not met, makes a statement saying if they're not met, then that's not a good thing, but that means that the disease actually meets the criteria here, then gives an example, and then wraps up by saying it justifies CVD's presence as a priority area. So therefore you read that and you can clearly see he's addressing the question. Same with priority population groups. Again, a little explanation there, example, and then a concluding sentence saying it justifies the necessity, beg your pardon, to evaluate CVD as a priority area. And as you scroll through here for prevalence of condition, you can see here that the same things happen. He sums up at the end by saying it's justified because of, after he's given examples. Same with cost of the individual and the community. So that's the overall answer. The only thing I would say, after about here, obviously he didn't see the back of the page, but after about this area here, you're sort of going into excess content there. So one suggestion would be that to try and prune your answer down to keep it to the lines because they're a suggested length, and that should sort of be how long you're spending on that particular question. Okay, but having said that, this is an excellent example of the person clearly knowing the syllabus, but also clearly applying his knowledge to the question.